Hey, this is Emma again, and today we're going to be continuing our discussion of AP language in composition. So this is going to be the second video of two parts devoted to the analytical essay. And so we've already covered the overview, what to look for in an analytical essay in a general sense, and today we're going to be going over a more specific prompt. So here's our entire prompt and passage. If you want to pause this video and do your own outline or annotations right now, that would be a good time. This is from the 2006 AP Language AP, and today I'm just going to go through my own annotations of this passage. I'm not going to go through an outline like I've done sometimes in the past, and will do again in the future, but it should give you enough of an idea about how to look for some of those devices and then connect them to meaning. As is true for any essay that we're going to look at, the first thing that we want to consider when looking at an analytical essay is the prompt. And so here is the prompt for our 2006 essay, and it reads, "The passage below is an excerpt from Price's recent essay, A Plastic Pink Flamingo, A Natural History. The essay examines the popularity of the plastic pink flamingo in the 1950s. So I'd say that that is all introductory information. And then we get into the task. And the task is to read the passage carefully, like hopefully you might do for any essay, and then write an essay in which you analyze how Price crafts the text to reveal her view of the United States culture. So right here we're given in very broad terms the devices that we're supposed to look for, really any devices, how Price crafts the text. That means we're looking for any part of her language that stands out to us. And then we are given the meaning that we're supposed to connect with those devices, and that is to reveal her view of United States culture. Again, it's a pretty broad prompt. So let's just jump in and get started. I'm going to split this up by paragraph just for the sake of space on my iPad. So here we go. The first sentence I read is, "When the pink flamingo splashed into the 50s market, it staked two major claims to boldness." Now, the two things I mainly notice in this first sentence is the word splashed and the word boldness. Firstly, splashed has this very natural connotation, and as her title, A Natural History, might prescribe, but it also has this weird contrast to the idea of a pink flamingo, a plastic pink flamingo. The plastic is not so natural. So that's an interesting contrast to look out for in the future. And also this word boldness. Boldness is now the quality that we are associating with this plastic pink flamingo. And so we're going to look for, is that really a desirable quality? Is that something that she's associating with American culture? Or that Americans want to be seen as? That perhaps that is something that will come up later on in the passage. She says, "First, it was a flamingo." And this emphasis on the fact that it's a flamingo almost describes how out of place this bird is in an American culture. And she continues to say, "Since the 1930s, vacationing Americans had been flocking to Florida and returning home with flamingo souvenirs." Now, this word flocking has two purposes, as I see it. Again, looking for words that are chosen purposefully, even within a specific word, can be very important, because this word flocking to me, again, is related to the word splashed in the first sentence, because it is a natural image. Birds flock, and yet it's related to humans in this case. And so how I take from that, I have to think, what is the purpose of her using the word flock to describe humans? And I would say that the connotation is this group of mindless followers in a flock of birds kind of following each other without thinking about the purpose or the substance behind their actions. And that is a negative connotation. That in some ways she's beginning a critique of Americans just in that one word, in my interpretation of this passage. But suddenly she transitions from these natural images to the first grand hotel, the synonymous with wealth and pizzazz, hundreds of modest hotels, trains, architecture. These are all words that have to do with wealth, and in some way she's referring to the fact that America is perhaps this appearance-based culture, that even the middle class desires to look wealthy, and so they will go to any lengths, as including buying plastic pink flamingos to demonstrate the wealth that they don't actually have. Again, it's a beginning of a criticism of an American culture. And I see that in the transition in adjectives from grand hotel to more modest hotels. The fact that this is the sign of wealth is now trickling down from the sign of wealth and privilege to the middle class who clearly desires that same image. She continues to say, this was a little ironic since Americans had hunted flamingos to extinction in Florida in the late 1800s for plumes and meat. So this one sentence is the first outright sign of kind of a scathing critique of this American culture. She says, this was a little ironic. This is an understatement considering she's discussing the extinction of an entire bird, and she discusses that they had specifically been eradicated for their plumes and meat. Again, this speaks to the appearance-based culture, and on the side I noted it's superficial, and the fact that Americans will go to any lengths to prove their wealth to others. And I also noted that this highlights the ignorance of American culture, the fact that we're bringing back this bird that we killed off for the same purpose that we're using their image now, which is to demonstrate our own societal eminence. She continues, claiming, but no matter. And this little segment describes a few things. First, the tone is sarcastic, really, angry. And it has this underlying tone of irony because there's a disparity between what the reader expects her reaction to be to this extinction and to her actual reaction. The expectation is that this would be an important event that she would discuss further. Rather, she emphasizes the false importance of the role of the fake flamingo in this understatement to highlight the importance of the real one. The fact that Americans have been uncaring, ignorant of their past, and focused on their appearance. And perhaps this statement, but no matter, is actually a reflection, a sarcastic reflection, but still a reflection of the prevailing attitude of Americans towards the destruction that they've caused in their own country, really. Next, she says, back in New Jersey, the Union Products flamingo inscribed one's lawn emphatically with Florida's cachet of leisure and extravagance. So now she's drawing a comparison between appearance versus reality. And the appearance here is of leisure and extravagance, but really, in reality, you don't necessarily associate New Jersey with extravagant wealth and being at the top of the social hierarchy. So really, again, she's highlighting the fact that Americans are so focused on their appearance of wealth and leisure that it actually turns into a statement of their lack thereof. Because this flamingo has now become a sign of the middle class, really. Next, Price references Las Vegas, and she calls it the flamboyant oasis of instant riches. And here she's using Las Vegas as a model for American culture. It's rich, it's flamboyant, it's bold. It's what the pink flamingo represents. And she actually references a gangster, Benjamin Bugsy Siegel, who represents the fact that Americans have this tendency to care more about the accumulation of wealth than the means by which that wealth was accumulated, and that she's highlighting this kind of immoral side of American fascination with wealth, that this gangster who's made money in shady ways could be seen as an idol for his wealth and his flamboyance and his appearance of boldness. And again, it's a critique showing that Americans perhaps value substance much less than they really should. She's raising the question, should a gangster be an idol or a symbol of some sort of goodness or status really in a society? And finally, she has this string, and again, this is something to look out for, repetition of phrases, of words, of letters. So she says, the flamingo motels, restaurants, lounges, cropped up across the country like a line of semiotic sprouts. And so I see this repetition, motels, restaurant, lounges, and to me that string shows that the device is the string, it's the repetition, and the meaning would here be that this pink flamingo has become ubiquitous. It is everywhere, and it's an unpleasant, the semiotic sprouts, it's an unpleasant symbol of, it's false, it's fake glamour, and it's become so popularized that it has really no meaning anymore other than being some sort of strange and unpleasant decoration. Next, Price discusses the color pink, a second and commensurate claim to boldness. Again, this adjective of bold has been repeated multiple times as something that is associated with the pink flamingo, but now we realize that it's not necessarily good. Bold is not necessarily desirable, but it is what is being desired by the American people, but she's questioning this obsession with boldness, and then she goes on, and again, looking for this repetition in phrases, in letters, and words. She says, the plastic industries of the 50s favored flashy colors. This alliteration, which counts as repetition, only of the F letters, highlights the frivolous and playful kind of nature of this cultural obsession, and yet it's also not actually so playful. It's really a falsely upbeat kind of phrase to demonstrate how what the pink flamingo is seen as, and it contrasts with her true vision of it as this representation of all things that are undesirable in American culture. Obsession with wealth and appearance and materialism. Next, she goes on in the entire rest of the paragraph to describe the kind of cultural popularity. She quotes Tom Wolfe, the new electrochemical pastels of the Florida littoral, tangerine, boiling magenta, livid pink, incarnadine, fuchsia, demure, Congo ruby, methyl green. And so here she uses this string, I would almost count this as a repetition, of kind of a fancy description, and that would be, again, bringing up this motif of appearance versus reality. In this, it appears to be kind of this fun and edgy new color that represents a futuristic and modern perspective, whereas in reality, we see it that it's actually kind of trashy and ubiquitous. And at the end, like I said, in our overview video, repetition is going to be seen in practically every analytical passage that you're given. And so if you see it at all, it's often there to emphasize something. And again, I see here at the kind of bottom part of this passage where she says, washing machines, cars, kitchen counters, proliferated in passion pink, sunset pink, and Bermuda pink. And so here I see a repetition of objects and versions of pink. To me, this repetition emphasizes the fact that it's pervasive and really kind of obnoxiously present in American life. It's everywhere. She brings up Elvis Presley. It's the fact that it's not just present in everyday kitchens and household items, but it pervades culture through up to the very wealthiest people in this country and the most idolized. And it has this kind of feeling that everything is pink and everything is this false materialistic focus in America. And perhaps that's the point that Price is trying to get across with all this repetition, is that pink and the focus on wealth was overwhelming and in some ways eclipsed what was truly important in life, which is not the appearance of wealth. Why, after all, call the birds pink flamingos as if they could be blue or green? Again, kind of chastises American culture, and she goes on to say, the plastic flamingo is a hotter pink than a real flamingo, and even a real flamingo is brighter than anything else around it. And here she ascribes this American obsession with wealth a false quality. There's something fake, clearly, about this flamingo, and she describes how Americans want flashy things. They want flashy and bright more than they value genuine beauty and meaning. Something with genuine beauty cannot be valued unless it is enhanced or improved, supposedly, in some way. And she's commenting on the sadness of this truth. And in the next section, she brings up this contrast of other cultures with American culture. She uses this string again, this repetition of cultures. She describes the Christians, ancient Egypt, in Mexico, and the Caribbean. These are all places that contrast America, and that they also use the flamingo as a representation of something meaningful, whereas for the Christians it's a phoenix, and in Egypt it's connected to religion, and in Mexico it has to do with art, dance, literature. These are all meaningful, substantive things. And yet in America, she finishes her essay with, the Americans in temperate New England reproduced it, brined it, and sent it wading across an inland sea of crass. And it just reveals, again, the unnatural quality, firstly, of flamingos in America, and secondly, how whereas all the other cultures found some significance in the flamingo, all we've done is made it look like an exaggerated version of itself. The flamingo is symbolic of a culture, and other people take meaning from the flamingo, whereas in America, all that the focus is that everyone wants to look rich and modern, and it lacks substance. The fact in itself that this essay has focused on this fake pink flamingo as opposed to a real flamingo, which is significant in other cultures, reveals that Americans have this unhealthy and unsubstantive obsession with appearance, and she is trying to draw this out in this kind of ironic critique of the American culture as a whole. And that has really summed up the entire essay, but specific devices like the alliteration and the repetition that we pointed out, and the contrast of appearance and reality, those all are the devices that we talked about in the prompt, how Price crafts the text, and her view of United States culture is really this predominant criticism of appearance-based America. And that is how we've addressed the prompt. We've gone through and taken the meaning and addressed the task that we were assigned. So here we have our annotations all put together neatly on one page. And another thing that I wanted to point out was that let's not forget the title, The Plastic Pink Flamingo, A Natural History, which is, again, another kind of ironic jab at the fact that this is really an unnatural phenomenon. That's something you could bring up within your essay or your conclusion. That might be a nice touch. It's always good to kind of bring in extra information from the prompt that might have otherwise been overlooked. It just shows like close reading. And really, this is what my paper kind of looked like by the end of my annotations. Obviously, you may not have enough time to go through all of these in your essay. You may not catch all of these on a first or even second or third read of the passage, and you may catch different things or more things. Really, it's all just a matter of what fits in with your schedule on that particular essay, but I did my best to go over as much content as I could just to give an idea of different devices and how they can connect to meeting. I'm not going to go over an essay outline, though could be basically an outline, because remember, you're going to want to go through especially your analytical essays chronologically. You'll want to start when the pink flamingo splashed and end at wading across an inland sea of grass. And that's typically the best organizational method. It's much more clear for you to just go through your paper and say, this is what I wrote by this paragraph, and then just keep going through chronologically rather than having to come back to different devices or different perspectives. I don't know other forms of organization, but this is definitely, keeping it chronological can be very helpful. So this has been the second part of our AP language and composition discussion of the analytical essay. I hope it was helpful. Again, it's the 2006 AP. If you Google Pink Flamingo AP Language, you should be able to find it, and some sample essays and score guidelines. I have some other videos for AP Language coming out and that I've already done. So take a look at those if you think they'd be helpful, and thanks for watching.